strips off all of his armor and just show off all his scars. He says, "Bring forth a man who has bled more than me, and we will go home." Everybody looks around and looks at his scars and like, damn. And they just started pounding their chest and pounding their shields, and then they continued the march.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Pathways to Wealth. In this interview, we're talking to Aubrey Marcus, who's the founder of the globally recognized brand Onnit. He's partners with the infamous Joe Rogan. And one thing that a lot of people don't know that a lot of you traders will appreciate is Aubrey is the son of Michael Marcus, who's one of Jack Schwager's original market wizards. That's right. His dad is one of the best commodity futures traders of all time. And we're going to talk about his story growing up in that environment and ultimately what led him to build this amazing recognized company that's now acquiring other companies. And it's just really incredible to hear his story of struggle and how he built a company that is now known to be one of the best employers, one of the best places to work in Austin, and just overall really cool guy. And we're also going to talk about his 14 journeys down to the Amazon jungle to experience ayahuasca, which if you've never heard about that, or maybe you have, you got to hear his stories. It's absolutely insane and really, really interesting. And for anybody that is interested in just being a higher performer, if you're a trader or an investor or an entrepreneur, I think you're going to benefit from Aubrey's kind of holistic approach to health and wellness and kind of the mind-body connection. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right in. What's up, everybody? Today we have Aubrey Marcus in the house. Thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Happy New Year. So what's going on? What's happening in your world?
Oh, man, that's a broad question. That's probably the most challenging question to ask because there's always so much going on. You know, Onnit is, of course, the priority, and that encompasses such a broad range of things. You know, being CEO of that company, I really am managing so many different things at the same time. But it's really going well. You know, we got the gym is killing it. Black Swan Yoga, one of our acquisitions.
Yeah, you guys just took that over, right?
Yeah, we took that over. That's doing the best it ever has. The core company selling the supplements and the foods and equipment, that's all going really well. Our content arm, which is the Onnit Academy, that's going really well. We're working with a float tank manufacturer and getting the first Onnit Zero Gravity Institute float tanks ready for market. That's going well.
Nice.
So many things in the works, but everything's on the up.
Man, you guys are a beast. So yeah, I went to your office, I guess your corporate office / gym, and got the grand tour. Man, you guys are doing some impressive stuff over there.
Yeah, I wanted to create an environment that, you know, was like the ideal place for me to be. And it just so happens that it's a very viable commercial opportunity as well. I mean, I love working out. I love playing volleyball. I love jiu-jitsu. I love yoga. So I'm really living the dream, man.
Yeah. I mean, that jiu-jitsu gym that you guys were, I guess, just building out, right?
Yeah.
I think it's sick, man.
Yeah. It's dope.
It's awesome. So, okay, I want to go back in history for anybody that doesn't know you. So you're the founder and CEO of Onnit.
Yep.
But you come from our world, the trading space. Your dad, let's talk a little bit about that and kind of how you came up in that space.
Yeah, so my father's Michael Marcus, and he's been featured in Jack Schwager's Market Wizards, one of the original commodities trading OGs. You know, worked at Commodities Corp, and a lot of the big names that are still kicking around, Bruce Kovner, Paul Jones, you know, they'll always give credit to my dad as, you know, one of the mentors and one of the OGs of the world there. So that was just me growing up, you know, on my dad's side at least. It was just, you know, flying in crazy planes and going to these crazy places and meeting these people who were just like, you know, my dad's friends. And then as I got older, I started to realize their significance.
You were like, wait, these guys are badass.
Yeah, managing like $10 billion funds. And, you know, so, but I got to see his lifestyle as well. And it was crazy. It was, you know, up and down. It was up all hours of the night. And, you know, especially for a commodities trader, unlike a stock trader, you know, there's international markets that are moving the needle all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's
what kind of stuff was he trading?
He really liked the metals and the currencies, but you know, he couldn't stay away from the grains and, you know, mixing it up with all of that different stuff. I mean, some of his best stories are, you know, obviously chronicled in, you know, Schwager's books and listed, but it was wild. You know, I think one of the classic stories that he has is he got up at like 3 a.m. and he's going to go to the bathroom and check his positions, and he turns on the TV in the bathroom and he sees tanks rolling from Russia into Afghanistan.
Oh,
and
shit.
He's like, damn, tanks rolling in. There's total surprise. No one saw that coming. So he calls his desk. He's like, hey, what's gold doing? I'm like, no, nothing. He's like, you see the tanks rolling into Afghanistan? And they're like, nah, tanks are rolling into Afghanistan. He's like, buy everything you can.
Nice, man.
So he just loaded his position up. And then, as soon as everybody woke up and realized what was going on, obviously gold is that kind of fallback position whenever the world is in turmoil. Everybody wants gold.
Flight to safety, man. Everybody loves gold.
Yeah. So, those were crazy times. Obviously, that doesn't happen now.
Yeah.
Right. That was those were the late 80s.
That's when people had an edge in the markets. Now they have algos that read the news and they're like, a little bit of fear, sell.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a totally different game now. And I think, watching also that transition where the market had a lot of opportunity and he was crushing it. And then as, 90s, thousands came along, he was still a very skilled trader, but the market was way, way, way tougher.
Yeah, it's way more efficient. I talked to, people like James Altucher. He's like, yeah, I used to run a fund, and then 2008 happened, and it wasn't the fact that the market melted down. It was the high frequency stuff that came in and just completely changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you used to see positions like lock, limit up, or limit down for days,
Yeah.
And just, you just don't see that much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like algos fighting algos.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I'm like, look, the only way you have an edge in the market is to trade when there's emotion, when there's actual people throwing money at the market. Because if not, I mean, you're trading against something that's way faster and less emotional than you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I also almost, it's obviously a different analogy because one is definitely traditional gambling. But I think in UFC betting, which is something I do as kind of a hobby for fun, back a while ago, the average fan could be smarter than the people making the odds. Yeah. Regularly smarter.
Really?
So you could just rape the UFC lines.
Yeah.
It's just because they didn't understand the sport. The people setting the lines were always way off. And so if you got in early, you could ride that adjustments and then arbitrage out on the other side and make guaranteed money or just take advantage of a bad line.
Yeah.
Now that's getting tighter. So really the opportunity comes when there's emotion. Like everybody betting on Conor McGregor, betting him down to a negative 500.
Yeah.
When really, obviously that was a much, much closer fight.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of deal.
I think, people got caught up in his confidence, and
I got caught up.
I saw on your Facebook, you called for him, right?
I called for him. Actually, everything was going exactly as I thought, except I was so sure that he would win. I was like, yeah, Nate's going to start landing his hands in round 2. And I was like, what's Conor going to do? Because I assumed the proposition that he had to win and then tried to fill in the story later. I was like, yeah, Nate's definitely going to start hitting him in round 2. So I guess he's going to take him down and win that way. And that's how I finished it. And I was like, no, dummy. Nate's going to start hitting him in round 2 and he's going to go out.
Yeah.
That's the most logical way. But again, that's the same thing. My emotions, and I was almost any great champion or any great fighter, they make you a little bit intoxicated. Same with the market. The market will make you intoxicated with greed or fear.
Yeah.
And then when you're intoxicated, you don't see things right.
Yep.
You have foregone conclusions. Oh, this must happen. Yep. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to happen.
That's why the mental side is so strong, man. And you get that. I mean, you built a product around it. And I'm always telling people, be a contrarian, think against the herd, because once everybody's in agreement, that's when things usually capitulate really fast.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, on the mental side of stuff. What's your philosophy? I know, you developed the product, but where did that come from? And what was that inspired out of?
I started to realize that what I put in my body affected performance. And, my stepmother was a famous nutritional doctor, nutraceutical doctor, ND. And so I got used to taking supplements and then feeling the result. On test day, I had certain supplements. On game day, I had certain supplements. So I got used to that paradigm. Then I went to see a doctor in New York who really explained the function of the neurotransmitters and how neurotransmitter precursors could affect performance that way. And kind of piecing together that knowledge and experimenting with things, I ended up having a cabinet of 10 different supplements, all for my brain.
Like nootropics?
Yeah, nootropics. Yeah, so different things. You had your alpha GPC, and you had all of these different ingredients, and I was like, man, this is really annoying to have to open up 10 bottles, take 10 different supplements when all I want to do is turn on my brain.
Yeah.
And so, talk with Joe Rogan about creating this supplement, combining all of those together and creating something really potent. And that's what we did.
And what I think is really cool is you guys actually have studies to back it up that scientifically it works. Like, how did you go about doing that? I mean, it was Boston College that did
Boston Center for Memory.
Boston Center for Memory.
So one of the, top institutions studying different, both natural and pharmaceutical, means to advanced brain health, really. So they had run 14 trials in a row that didn't show results, a combination of natural supplements and pharmaceuticals. So they came to, we came to them and we said, we got this new compound and we're very confident that it'll work. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. We'll give it a go, but you realize we're going to publish this if it doesn't work. We're like, yeah, that's fine. All right. And so they run through, the traditional cognitive battery versus placebo, double blind, the whole rigors of the scientific method. And in the pilot study, we got 2 significant markers in verbal memory and executive function. So that was a small study. They're like, oh, that's interesting, but it was a small patient group, so let's expand that. So then we expanded that to 63 people, duplicated the results with verbal memory and executive function, which is awesome to have 2 different studies independent of each other, duplicating the results. And then from there, we hooked people up to an EEG as well and showed a variety of different brainwave optimization that went along with it.
That's crazy. So what does that mean? Like recall, like they had better memory and...
Yeah. So in a list of 20 words, they remembered a couple more words than the placebo did.
Okay.
So just recalling those kind of names and places and having information be able to access was one of the attributes that alpha brain could cause. That, and then focusing on what they call executive function, which was basically a complex maze that you had to draw this line through, connecting different elements. People perform better on that. And then their alpha brainwave frequency, the peak alpha, which a lot of people associate with like flow state and that being of like being in the zone. Yeah. We showed significant improvement in that as well.
Nice. So awesome. So you had the study and then it went well. You published that. And were you guys like... Let's back up a little bit. So whenever you started on it, did you go into it saying, I want to be a supplement business or I want to be in the gym business? Like, how did that vision begin?
Well, I think supplements were the first thing that I realized there was a big need for. That was that problem that I was solving for myself that I knew I could solve for everyone else. There's too many supplements for the same thing. You have 100 supplements for your brain. Well, take the best 10, put it in one thing, and just forget it. Leave the rest. Duplicate that formula for mood, for energy, for bones and joints, for strength, for anything. Take all the best, put them together, study them, and then put that out. So I knew that was going to be a core of it, but I also realized that the human body doesn't work in a vacuum. Like you can take the best supplements in the world, but if your sleep is weird, if you aren't working out, if your nutrition is poor, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You're still not going to be optimized. So that's where that total human optimization picture came. Mindset, body, health, supplements, the whole thing working together.
Nice. So was the Alpha Brain was that the first product that you guys put out?
That's the first product that I count. There was a few hangover supplements that I was working with. The formulas were actually pretty good, but the market was just the wrong market. People who are, they don't want a high-end supplement for that. You want that cheap little.
They just need a recovery. Just help me.
You really just need some salt and some sleep. That's really what you need the most. So Alpha Brain was our first foray into like legitimate performance optimization.
Nice. And then from there, you opened the gym here in Austin.
Yeah, so the gym, we had like a thriving company gym, and we were like, man, I bet the public would like to be a part of this because obviously everybody who came through and our training methodology, and it's just worked out better than I could have hoped. We got one of the best trainers in the world, I believe, John Wolf, and he's our chief fitness officer, and he's kind of running the unconventional program. We're doing certifications. We have online training at onnitacademy.tv. Nice. A variety of different ways to just promote these different tools that I think are some of the best tools for getting in shape: kettlebells, clubs, maces, ropes, sandbags, these things that actually work with the body in ways and movement patterns that the body is actually used, rather than locking yourself into a linear pattern with a bench press or a squat or something like that.
Yeah, I love the design with the gorilla head.
Yeah, for
kettlebells.
sure.
It was funny. I walked over to Whole Foods one day and there's Joe Rogan like hanging out promoting everything.
Yeah.
So what was like the biggest challenge that you faced in building this brand, building the business? Because it's a worldwide brand now, and it's really respected. And I've talked to my trainer and a couple other people in town, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Onnit's products are great, and their gym's badass." Like, but obviously it didn't happen overnight, and it probably wasn't easy. What was the hardest thing that you've run into trying to build that?
Well, I think the initial challenging thing with any business is figuring out how to get your reach. How to like reach the market. And that was the partnership with Joe Rogan made that easy. He's got a huge reach. And so I had to focus on making incredible products and defining the culture of the company: honesty, transparency, service to our customers. And then scaling up has been some of our biggest challenges, getting the web platform safe and secure to to the level of the sales that was going. And everything was just like, the sales hit when Joe Rogan and I were talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's been a scramble to catch up to a great degree and put out all the rest of the products that encompass total human optimization. So, you work your way from subpar legal counsel to excellent legal counsel, and subpar inventory management to excellent inventory management. And that whole process of just growing and finding out the right solutions is always a challenge. And there's always areas that you're going to screw up, things that you're blind to, parts of the rug that you haven't looked under that are collecting cobwebs and, cockroaches. So you just constantly have to be looking at that.
Nice. So what's next? Are you guys looking to grow the supplement side or the gym side? Because I know you acquired Black Swan, it's a Austin brand, right? Local brand. What's next in that space? Where's your focus?
That's the funny thing. It's like the focus is total human optimization. So we kind of flow where that tends to go. There'll definitely be a lot of energy continue to be put in the supplements and foods. But, Black Swan and the Onnit Academy are both very franchisable brands and facilities. So if that looks like that's something that the market wants, we'll flow that way. So there's a lot of different options, but we'll just kind of keep our eye on it and put coal where the fire's the hottest.
Yeah. I always wondered if the yoga business was like profitable, especially like I know in cities like Austin, like, there's a big yoga scene here, but I wonder like in other cities, is it kind of the same, or do you have any idea?
Yoga is generally not very profitable. It's basically one of those businesses where the owners have to teach, and by teaching, they're paying
a job.
They're paying themselves,
Yeah.
And that's generally how it goes. Black Swan's been able to scale up and be so successful that it's quite profitable, and that's interesting because it's a donation model as well.
Yeah.
You can go in there and take classes for free, and I think that kind of blows people's minds in the traditional sense. Like, what do you mean it's donation based? But it's definitely a super profitable business, and a cool one to be a part of as well, because you're offering a great service to society.
Yeah. What do you think of things like ClassPass? Do you guys take that, or do you?
Yeah, we do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to get people like exposed to different modalities and see what we're all about. We also have a free workout, free first workout for anyone who wants to come. I mean, we believe in our product, and that's with our money back guarantee or a free workout. We have a lot of faith that if people experience Onnit, they're going to want more.
Yeah. I love the total human optimization idea, because like in my space and trading and investing, like the mental side is so important, but like we have bad habits of just getting locked into the markets for like hours and hours and hours, and then that can flow into days, and then you're like, shit, I haven't worked out in a week, and I've only been eating crap, and like, I think it's good to take a break and to really just think about your life as a whole and not just focused on money, because like true wealth to me is really being able to spend time doing what you love, but also like being balanced, right? Like I think it's easy for entrepreneurs and traders and investors to get locked into just only thinking about work. So like, how do you find that balance in your life? Because you're running a pretty decent sized company now, and like, what does your day look like? Do you work out every day? Do you try to focus on like the mental side?
There's, I'm not one of those people who has like a regimen, where every day, like Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, I get up at 4 a.m. and take a photo of my watch and say, time to kick ass. That's not how I go. I just have a natural innate sense of balance. And when things get off, I have solutions for that. Yeah. Whether that's to go to a float tank and go floating, or meditate, or go out, take a trip and get out in nature, or do one of my plant medicine journeys, or one of these things. I have an innate sense of, how to go with that. I love working for Onnit and working out Onnit. I mean, it's literally my absolute epitome of what I would want for my life. So, but even still, having 90 people there, it's like having everybody with a little bit of a string and a hook attached to you. You know? And when everything's good and the kite's flying, it's great. But things, a little wind blows and all of a sudden you got 40 people pulling you one way, and it can be exhausting. So I make sure to take other time out and do other things. Yeah,
because like whenever the company succeeds, it's a group success. But if something goes wrong, it's on you, right? So.
And I wouldn't want it any other way. Yeah. A good leader is out in front of his troops. There's a reason that Alexander the Great wore a double plumed helmet and rode a giant stallion right in the front. Yeah. And when there's a famous story when he was, in a particularly brutal campaign in India, and the troops were tired, it's muggy, it's sweaty. The last thing you want to do is wear armor in summer in India. It's like a total nightmare. And so they were ready to mutiny. And he goes out in front of his men and he strips off all of his armor and show off all his scars. He says, "Bring forth a man who has bled more than me and we will go home." Everybody looks around and looks at his scars and like, damn. And they just started pounding their chest and pounding their shields. And then they continued the march.
Rally the troops.
I mean, if he didn't have that, if he was one of those guys like, yeah, you guys go figure it out and put your horses against those elephants, see how it goes.
Nope, off with your head.
Yeah, exactly. They would have been gone. So it's important to be that kind of leader.
Yeah. All right. So I got to ask you about the plant medicine trips. Is that how what you call it? Ayahuasca?
Yep.
So a couple of years ago, I went to the Amazon, and I went with a buddy who was like really looking to do that. So we're actually driving in a truck going over into Peru. I can't remember. We were in either Belize or Brazil or Peru, and my friend was asking him like, "Hey man, what's up with ayahuasca?" And the guy looks at him like really serious, and he's like, "You want the ayahuasca?" He's like, "This shit is no joke, man. It's like." You got to be prepared. And I was like, man, I don't know. It sounds intense. Like what, like explain for people that don't know, what is it? What does it do for you? What have you experienced with it?
Ayahuasca is a pretty transformative, medicine, and the medicine is what they call it there. And it's a combination of orally active form of DMT, which uses the vine ayahuasca with a variety of different leaves, which contain the DMT. And DMT is an interesting psychedelic because it's, mushrooms or something, it feels like it just alters your existing world, whereas DMT is like a rocket ship into a whole other world.
It's like the most intense thing you could do, right?
It's particularly visually, it's the most visually intense because it really takes you to an absolute different, realm or dimension, it feels like. And that in doing so can really unlock a lot of different things that you haven't seen about yourself, different ways that you can look inside and look in your psyche and see where problems are. And it's also very purgative, too. You end up usually vomiting or shitting yourself or any variety of these things that really clean the body out of these kind of negative energies. So the combination of the purgative qualities with introspection from the psyche, sometimes help from, these guides that you see in your visions, can really create a powerful experience. And I've done it 14 times now.
What? And, man, that's awesome. Is it in the Amazon or in the States?
Amazon in Peru, yeah.
Really?
Go down and, the first thing that happens is you have to confront your death. They call it the vine of death for a reason, because that's generally a pervasive fear that we all have, a fear that affects our happiness and bliss every single day. So ayahuasca will take you into the heart of that fear.
So does it make you feel like you're dying?
100%. Yeah, I took the first time I took it, the first thing that happened was I saw visions of spiders crawling in my eyes, laying eggs and exploding in my brain. And then there was eels that came up from the water, came into my insides, were chewing up my organs and my liver and chewing up all the way to my heart, and then bursting out of my body.
So you just have to submit to that.
Totally submit.
Did you like freak out the first time?
No, I wasn't freaked out yet. So it kept escalating things, trying to get me to freak out, right?
Yeah.
Like pushing, like, all right, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of the spiders in your eyes? And I was like, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of the eels eating your insides? Like, no, I'm okay. And then it showed me I was sliding down this vine of thorns naked. So it was just ripping up all my genitals and skin. And it's like, wow, that was particularly rude, but I'm still okay with that.
Yeah.
And then ayahuasca then pushed me to the point where it said, oh, you have cancer and you're going to die. And that freaked me out. I was like, oh, no, I don't. And so I wrestled with that for a while until finally, again, the lesson is submit. In regular life, you overcome challenges by pushing forward, by trying to conquer them. And in that space, it's by surrendering, showing your power by surrendering and accepting. And I said, okay, so be it. If that's the way it is, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life and we'll move on from there. And as soon as I accepted that, it was like one of those scenes from Avatar where all the fibers came up and held me back down into the earth. And
it was like peaceful after that?
Totally peaceful. And it's really gone a long way to completely eradicating my fear of death.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So like some people that, if this is like their first time hearing this, they're like, wait, why do you want to do drugs? Like what, I feel like that type of experience is completely different than like, no, let's go hit a blow or something like that, right?
Yeah, because it's completely unpleasurable. It's hell.
Yeah. Like you would not do that to get high and have like a good party like out on the town.
And it's the opposite of addictive. It's literally repulsive. Like the more you do it, the more repulsed you are from it because it's an incredibly challenging experience. This is, this isn't for everybody and this isn't a panacea, but if you're called to it, it's a trial by fire. It's putting the sword in the heat with the hammer and it's hammering it out. And either the steel's going to fold and become stronger or occasionally it can break. So you have to be ready for that kind of trial. Don't go in haphazardly. And also really pay attention to where you're going because there's, the shamans down there, just because they're a shaman doesn't mean they're good. They live by the law of the jungle. The law of the jungle is the strong eat the weak. And that's just how it goes. It doesn't mean they're immoral. It means they're part of the jungle. So definitely be really careful. Anybody interested, I have a kind of a guide on aubreymarcus.com/FAQ. So if you want to, explore that a little further, please take a look at that. I have no financial interest in any of these places, but it can at least be a starting point to help guide you.
Yeah, I saw it. I think it was on Netflix. There was a documentary of a Wall Street guy. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
It was this one of the top bond traders, I think, and he was like super stressed out. He was like overweight. And he ended up going down there with a friend and had an experience, kind of described it as like terrifying, just like you did, and confronted all his fears. And then he ended up leaving Wall Street, quit his job, moved down there, and like created a compound where he like brings his Wall Street buddies down to have that experience.
Yeah.
So you got over the fear of death completely. Mm-hmm. Did it transform or help any other areas in your life?
Well, that was that in itself transforms and helps so many areas, just removing that fear, because anytime you have fear, it's limiting your free will. It's limiting your flexibility and ability to choose. The second session was the opposite of that. Instead of all terror, it was very, very blissful, actually. And I was able to actually see issues with Onnit. Everything that Onnit has become, I was able to envision in that second ayahuasca ceremony. I was able to look and see where the marketing was off and what products I needed to supply and how I needed to run the company and what kind of integrity I needed to hold for it to be as successful as it was. So, nice. There's 2 points of it. There's the hellish confronting of the fears, and then occasionally you get that crystal clear vision of, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is how, I'm going to yield the maximum benefit for my life.
Nice. So, talking about integrity and leadership, I've heard recently that Onnit was rated one of the best places to work in Austin. Mm-hmm. What kind of culture do you create, or what kind of environment do you want to set up there? Yeah,
that's something that's really important to me, is to create a place where people can thrive, because I've been in the opposite. I've been in a place where everybody's miserable, and
I think that's a lot of places.
That's a lot of places. And I wanted to create something that was absolutely the opposite of that, where people could really flourish and become their best individual. So we provide every opportunity from, copay on food and massage and floating and cryo and free gym access and all of these tools. And then, but beyond that, we have unlimited vacation policy. We have all of these things that are made possible by getting everybody aligned to the mission. I regularly meet and chat with everybody and just tell them what this thing is all about. We're trying to become a transformative global entity to provide the tools to help give people energy, help get them out of fear, help get them out of pain so that they can be more beneficent to the world. And that's our mission. And if you don't believe in that mission, go find somewhere else to earn your money. The mission is the most important. And when you get people aligned to a mission like that, and then you just support them, there's no ego games and politics and people trying to claim credit for this. It's as close to a meritocracy as we can create. You put those conditions together and all of a sudden you have a happy, motivated workforce.
Nice.
And that's something that everybody who comes to Onnit comments on. They're like, man, your people are happy here. I'm like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm happy here.
Yeah.
So it flows down.
Life's just better whenever you live with a mission, isn't it?
100%.
It's like if you get up and you just go to work like, man, I just need to make money today. Like, I feel like that's kind of empty. And that's why I like trading and even investors like my real estate friends that, they kind of operate in their own world or maybe they work from home like a lot of guys and ladies do. It's like you have to get enrolled in some kind of mission. Like, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like, I don't think everybody's cut out to be like an entrepreneur or a CEO, but I feel like if you can find a mission and either enroll in somebody else's mission or create something for yourself, it just makes your days better, man.
Yeah. Mission is first. It's primary. You have to have, that's your guide star. What are you here to do? What's the legacy you want to leave? And then figure out the vocation that's going to support that, but mission definitely comes first.
Yeah, definitely, man. So what, like going back to the business side, like I'm really kind of intrigued with what you've built. I mean, the first time I went to your office, I mean, man, this is really cool. So like, what's the partnership of like UFC and Joe? Is he like part of the company or what? What's that?
Yeah, he's a partner in the company.
Okay.
And he's been the ideal business partner. We just have 100% honest communication. We just, divide the benefits and the wealth of the company and just go see what we can build together.
Nice.
And so he handles, obviously his podcast is huge and his reach with, especially in MMA is huge. And, everybody just plays their part.
Yeah. So it seems like a good fit for like the UFC type guys. I mean, they need to stay sharp mentally. They need to have kind of a holistic view. So
yep.
Nice.
For sure.
Cool, man. So got a few kind of rapid fire questions for you.
All right, let's go.
What does true wealth mean to you?
True wealth is, genuine satisfaction with your life. It's the intangible things, the quality of living, how often you can be in the present moment, how much you can enjoy this experience. There's a lot of false ways to keep score, money being one of them. Money is just energy to achieve different things. Sometimes you need more energy, sometimes you need less. But true wealth is just all the totality of everything that brings up the satisfaction of your experience.
The totality of everything that brings up the satisfaction of your experience.
Yeah.
That might be the best answer I've heard of that, man. That's really good. I like it. Do you have any leaders like entrepreneurs or mentors that you either read or follow or communicate with on a regular basis?
I'm someone who learns from everybody, and it doesn't have to be somebody famous. It can be anybody, but particularly people who are great at something. I'm always learning. Doesn't matter what you're great at. You could be a great ping pong player, great at lawn darts. I don't care. If you're great, then you had a process that helped you get great. There's some thing
mastery is mastery.
Mastery is mastery. There's something I can learn from you. I think the one individual who I met and I got to meet at the Summit at Sea cruise ship and listened to a lot was Bob Pittman, and he's now running CEO of iHeartMedia. And that's a guy who I can really look up to and say, that's the kind of CEO that I want to be. And there's a very short list of individuals like that. I have spiritual mentors in athletics and a variety of other things. But as far as being the CEO and leader of a company, Bob Pittman embodies that kind of conscious CEO that creates a positive environment around him and kills it in the market.
Nice, nice. Are there any books that you think are required reading for an entrepreneur or somebody that just wants to have high performance in any area of life?
There are a lot of great books that I think are important. I think, if you're in a toxic situation like I was, the book that was like the most crucial thing for me to read just to survive, because sometimes it's a matter of timing. Like I had to survive in a toxic situation long enough that I could make my play for Onnit.
Yeah.
And so I think back to Robert Greene's book, 48 Laws of Power. And obviously you can think of that book offensively and try to use the techniques to gather power, but it's really valuable defensively to see what everybody else is trying to do to you at that point. So you build your kind of defense. And I think for a lot of people, that's a good place to start. Like understand, what kind of environment is out there and what kind of forces are being applied to you, and then build a defense for that. And then beyond that, I really think the more you focus on working on yourself, the better you're going to be in business. So for me, reading a book like Don Miguel Ruiz's Mastery of Love, or Eckhart Tolle's The New Earth, or one of these books that really helps you be a better version of yourself is going to help shape the world around you. There's that old saying from Hermes Trismegistus, as above, so below, as within, so without. The more I work on myself, the easier things get externally.
Yeah. And I like that idea of like understanding outside powers and outside influences, because a lot of people think, well, how can I influence others? But if you learn what's coming at you, like that's going to teach you, that's going to just teach it both ways.
100%. It's like really vital, for anybody who's playing the game, because you need to know, you need to know the magic that the other wizards are wielding.
Yeah.
You need to read their spell book.
Yeah.
Even if you're going to just be neutral and be above it, you got to be able to cancel out their attacks.
Definitely. So you said you went through some stuff before you started on it. Like what was the toxic situation that you were in?
Well, I was working in a family business, and that's always particularly challenging.
Yeah.
Just the dynamics there. But it was just a situation where, hard work wasn't rewarded. That, I wasn't able to express myself in the fullest aspect of my professional business. There was always ways that I had to position things and things that I had to get done. It wasn't just wide open and transparent, like everything's on the table. Here's the plan. And, oh, you did something great. Good for you. Here's the reward. It was, there's just a lot of other factors and forces in play, and which, as we talked about earlier, when emotions get involved, which emotions are always involved with family. Yeah. When emotions are involved, things get inefficient. And I think that was really a product of that. It wasn't any malintent or maliciousness or, my stepfather at the time wasn't a bad guy at all. It's just that, the family dynamic did not bring out the best in that business, for me. So, I don't want to go into too many stories or details, but it was bad. It was dark. Yeah. It was the most challenging period of my life. Particularly, there was 2 different stints where I was, handling the marketing for them. The first time, pre 48 Laws of Power, I got crushed. I was the most depressed I've ever been in my life, because I had done a good job and I got what seemed to be punished for it. And I thought, well, if that's the way the world is, fuck the world. Right. I don't care about the world. If someone this close to me could act like this towards me, then everybody's screwed. So I just started partying a lot. And then I read 48 Laws of Power, and I was like, oh, I see what was going on. I see what was happening. And so when I went back and did some more stuff with them, just for the money, really, I had a bunch of other things going on as well. I was much more inoculated. And even though the same forces and dynamics were at play, I was at a different level of consciousness. So I didn't get wrapped up in it.
So you understood what was happening. It was like before you were like blindsided, like what the hell?
And I was right in the middle of it. I was like caught in the whitewater, just getting tossed and turned around. And other, when I had read that book, I was able to elevate above it and like look down.
Remove yourself
from the walls of the Grand Canyon. Like, man, that whitewater is gnarly. I don't want to get caught in that.
Yeah. So what happened? You came to a decision where you're like, look, this is it. I'm going to go do my own thing.
That was always the idea. Yeah. And again, it was just a matter of timing. I was gathering allies and resources like Joe Rogan, gathering information on how to do it, becoming a better person. And I was frustrated because I wanted it to happen right away. I tried some different forays. Yeah. But really, if I look back, it was just me preparing to be where I am now. And if it happened any sooner, I don't know if I would have been able to handle it. Everything happened at the proper timing, but I always had that in mind, like gather enough money. I need resources. I need everything ready so that the right time when I branch out, it'll be sustainable.
That's really powerful, man. Because a lot of people I feel like are just kind of grasping for opportunity, and they don't think like methodically about like, okay, what's my end goal, right? Like where do I want to get, and then what do I need to get there? So did you know it was the supplement business and the health industry that you wanted to be in, or was it I just want to do something and I know I need these resources?
Yeah, I didn't know it was supplements. I knew that improving myself was a singular passion of mine, and so anything in that field would have been a good choice, because you try to align your business with your passions. Obviously, that's going to be the best. But if I had received another opportunity in something that was great, I probably would have tried to take that too.
Yeah,
It wasn't like I was sure it was supplements, but the way it evolved, it couldn't have evolved any better or any different. This is something that I was doing every day. I was taking supplements. I was working out. I was exploring unconventional training. I was training MMA and hanging with fighters. And it was like the culmination of everything that I wanted. And it just happened to be that way.
I love that, man. Everybody has like their own pathway to like true wealth. And that's why I named the show Pathways to Wealth. Cause like there's not one right way. I mean, when we were kids, like our dads and that generation was like, no, you got to go to school, you got to get a good job and just have a secure future. But I feel like for a lot of people that's changing, and like success looks completely different than it did just a couple decades ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you got to be aware of the counter pressures that your parents put on you. If I had listened to my dad, I would have been at a bond desk somewhere. That wouldn't have suited me. I could have done it. I could have forced my brain to do the calculations necessary to make that happen, but I would have been miserable.
Yeah.
Instead, it took a meandering, wandering path, but all the wisdom I gained on my own path set me up to live my ideal future, to go for my win.
Yeah.
And so you got to be aware of those counter pressures.
Nice. I like it. So if I could put a framework on kind of how I saw your journey, it was like you had a passion and you had the entrepreneurial drive and you were patient, you got the resources together, and you were kind of strategic in the way that you set things up, and then you executed on it, right?
Yeah, everything just kind of came together, raised a little bit of money. It didn't take much money, but really the key was finding that key ally in Joe Rogan, and being willing to give up a large share of my company, to partner with him, to recognize like, all right, this guy's going to add amazing value. I want to be in business with him. Let's do this together.
Yeah. You could have 100% of something this big, or 50 or whatever of something much larger.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think partnerships are huge, man. Like a lot of people that want to do it on their own, that's fine, but you have to recognize you can get much, much further by aligning yourself with people that have valuable resources.
Yeah, the right partner is really key, and making sure that you choose that right partner, because Rogan was a particularly great partner. I could have partnered with someone like, let's say back then, I'm friends with Ludacris right now, who's a rapper. He's got 12 million Instagram and Twitter followers. Let's say I was closer with him then, and I was like, Luda, let's start this thing. We'll go 50-50. Well, his influence and reach, despite the massive numbers, is a fraction of what Joe Rogan's is. Like Luda can post an amazing post, and I always appreciate when he does, talking about Onnit supplements and stuff, hardly moves the needle. Rogan does the same thing. Boom. It's like,
you think it's like the mindset of people that follow Joe he's about that, right? Like that's the holistic
and
approach.
It's also, he has a platform that speaks to people where they think it's honest, and they believe it, and it is honest. Joe's having these honest conversations with people. He's letting people see the real him, for 3 hours at a time. Whereas, a musician or something, or an athlete like that, you see them perform, but do you really know them? No, you just know their performance. You know their persona. You know their performance.
Yeah.
So, Dwayne Johnson's another example. He posts pictures of him with our Bigfoot primal bell and all our kettlebells all the time.
Yeah.
Does that sell a bunch of kettlebells for us? No. He's one of the biggest mega stars in the world.
No shit. I thought that would make some big strides.
But our boy Lewis Howes posts something, and that'll do more than Dwayne Rock Johnson. And we're talking
cool.
a magnitude of scale that's massively different. No offense to Luda, but he's no fucking Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
But his audience listens to him and they trust him because he's out there in front of them talking, opening his heart, and telling the truth. And so I think picking allies not based on their magnitude, but how effective they're going to be for you, that's really important.
Man, that is so powerful. Yeah, and one thing that I really love about Joe, and like you can just tell he's like thirsty for knowledge, right?
Always.
Like he had one of the first podcasts I really ever watched the entire way through was when he had Andreas Antonopoulos, the Bitcoin guy, because I'm like a Bitcoin geek, and I'm like, you could just tell like Joe is just like really, really curious and like really honest about how he feels about certain situations. And if he doesn't know something, he's not afraid to ask.
Yeah. It's his commitment to honesty. And I think that's one of the reasons why he continues to grow and grow. I mean, he's not going to bullshit on any aspect of the thing. You know, like he plays it at 100, which is so rare.
Yeah.
You know, like no matter what he's doing, he's playing it at 100.
Yeah.
He could be wrong, but he'll admit he's wrong when he figures it out.
Yeah.
You know, so
just go all in. No bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Were you guys friends first, or like how did you guys get connected?
Yeah, we set up I was an early adopter to podcast advertising. So I actually approached him before he had any advertisers for a different company.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, man, I'd love to sponsor your podcast. He's like, sponsor my podcast? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, cool. Yeah. So we set up a lunch meeting, and that what was supposed to be a 30-minute lunch meeting turned into a 4-hour conversation about aliens and super volcanoes and psychedelics. And
nice.
We got to be friends.
Cool. Nice, man. That's the best way to do it, is like partner up with somebody that not only like has the same values, but like you can have fun with, and
totally.
You enjoy their company. Yeah.
Totally. Every time I get to see him, I just saw him this past weekend. It's a real pleasure.
Nice, man. So what advice would you give somebody starting off their entrepreneurial journey? They're like, man, looking at Aubrey, he built something really badass. He's having fun. Any words of wisdom? Yeah.
Mission first. You know, find out what your mission is. That's like the most important thing. And then from there, start choosing what that entrepreneurial path will be, your vocation, so to speak, by, looking at your passions, looking at your connections. Those are two different areas. So what are you passionate about and who are you connected with? And then try and kind of make a combination of all of these different parts, all of these pieces, and try to bake a pie with it. And if you don't have enough pieces to bake a good pie, you're missing some recipes here. You don't have the sweet, you don't have the salty, you don't have whatever. Go out and find that. Get all your pieces ready before you try to put together a shoddy pie and shove it down someone's throat. That's not going to work. Respect your customer. Don't anticipate you're going to fool them. Don't play that game. Like, provide something that's genuinely of value, that if you were sitting across from them, you would buy, and make sure that you have all the pieces together to do that. Well said, man. Yeah. Where can people reach out to you? At Aubrey Marcus is my personal. You can pretty much find that everywhere. AubreyMarcus.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then Onnit, of course. Yep. Reach out for anything you need there at Onnit, Onnit.com. Nice. Check it out. Nice, man. Well, thanks for dropping all those knowledge bombs, man. Yeah, man. It's been a pleasure. Give me some investment tips. Hot tips. Hot tips. I want hot tips. What? Kind of a last final note here. Like, I am excited about kind of the democratization of the markets right now. Mm-hmm. Like, we went from like the 80s and 90s where it was like kind of easy, not easy, but it was easier to trade, to like the HFT space. And now with like digital currencies and all this new stuff that's coming out, like it's actually leveling the playing field again. Nice. So that's pretty exciting stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, glad to hear it. Yeah. But yeah, man, we'll go ahead and link everything up. Again, thanks for coming out, man. And best of luck in the future. Yeah, appreciate that. My pleasure, man. For sure.